Hello, everybody. Today I am really excited to go over the DeepSeek model launch drop. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll discuss how I've been using the model, how I got it running, what I think about it, and we'll actually be using it over the full session that we will be discussing it. And yeah, I've been very excited about this. I've been using the model nonstop for 3 days, both via their API and locally. I've had it work in the Claude desktop app. It is incredibly cheap, and yeah, I'm going to show you what I mean because I was just surprised at how much usage I was getting for such a little amount of money. Now, before we do that, let's just look at the model card because it is a very unique drop. Their Flash model, which I'm running locally, is 284 billion parameters. Their full-sized model is 1.6 trillion, and this is the largest open weight model that is available. So both of them have 1 million token context length, and they are very efficient across those 1 million tokens. For the DeepSeek-V4-Flash model, so it's 284 billion parameters. Based on the chinchilla coefficient, you're supposed to train it for, so 284, let's just round it up to 300. You're supposed to train it on about 6 trillion tokens. They have trained it on 4 times that amount, if not a little bit more. So that is really exciting. That means that the model is very dense with information, world knowledge, coding knowledge, and all of that. And we could see here with DeepSeek V4-Flash, which is the one I'm most excited about, it is performing above almost all of the models anywhere close to its size range. So you could see here on MMLU Pro, this is a benchmark that they do to check a model's reasoning and world knowledge. And you could see that the max, like the Pro version, the larger model, is 87.5. The Flash version is 86.2. Kimi K2.6 is 87. GLM 5.1 is 86, so lower than the Flash version even. And it is about 3 points lower than the GPT 5.4 model. With HLE, which is coding, it is 37 and 34, so the Flash version is 34. That's the score for it. And that is basically maybe 15% worse than Opus 4.6 Max. It beats all of the Opus models from the last year, except until 4.6. With Terminal Bench 2.0, which is a very important benchmark for me, I use this a lot. I find it to be like the most realistic in terms of what I do with these models. The Flash version is 56.5, 56.9, which is, yeah, it's about like 15% worse than GPT or Gemini 3.1. With the coding, they're right up neck and neck, and I've tried this, and it's not benchmarks. It's definitely good at coding. With tools, these models get much better, and the actual size of the model, so again, it is 280 gigabytes or billion parameters. It's an FP8, so that means it is 280 gigabytes. If you quantize it to 4 bits, you get about 170 gigabytes. That would fit on 83090s or a Mac M3 Ultra, maybe even a Mac M4 Max or something like that. The size of the model is actually really good for something that is like entry-level professional. In the past, we've had models like Qwen 3.6 or 3.5 that are small and dense, but they're very slow. And that was a big issue with it. So I've tried, for example, Qwen 3.6 on my framework desktop, and I was getting about 7 tokens a second. I'm sure I could get it to be higher, but not by much. This model was going at like 20 tokens a second on a framework, which is pretty cheap. There was a YouTuber who does Inferencer Labs. I don't remember his name, but he had an M5 Ultra or M3 Ultra, and it was about 25 tokens a second for the 8 or 9-bit version, which is really good for a Mac. So this is going to be a very transformative moment in the economics of AI, and that is for one reason. So I purchased $100 of API usage on Saturday, I believe, and over 2 days, I've used 130 million tokens just via their API, and I have spent $4. If we take that average and compare it to something like a GPT 5.5 or an Opus 4.7, this would be something like $50 to $80+ depending on how much read versus write. This model tends to read a lot, which is very useful because it tends to be more accurate and it does less things. So it just reads a bunch of context, does a few tool calls, reads a bunch of context, and I like that behavior. I've also noticed that it double checks its own work very often. What I mean by that is the model will do something, and we can try to spawn a few things while this is waiting. I'm going to take a ghosty. 1 second, sorry about the delay, but here, let's take ghosty and full screen that CD into DeepSeek, V4-Flash, and we can clear this out and run Pi for now. I am opening my screen. Okay, thank you for being patient. So here is the model. I am running it at 380K context. So that is double the size of the original Claude models, right? Most of us used them when they were 200K. So this, I could fit 2 compactions with Claude within this model. And the tokens a second, the peak was 92 tokens a second for generation and 40,000 for prefill. This is if it hits cache. It's about 2,000 if it doesn't hit the cache. 92 drops to about 50 or 40 at the latest. This is within 300K context and 300K tokens in the context window. It'll get down to 50. I also have it set up here in the Claude desktop app. You could see here Flash and Pro, and I can say something like review the PR and reduce the lines of code without ruining functionality. Next, this is Flash. So this is the one that's running on my own personal device, and we talked about the logistics around that. So let's open the status page. You can see here all of the details. It is 355 gigabytes for about 8 concurrent users, depending on how much context there is and all of the details around it. But I could get about 8 concurrent users, and that would be something like 400 tokens a second total. But I'm usually using maybe 3 sessions at the same time. What I do is I'll just have them like pause between sessions. So it'll do something in one, it'll do something in another. That's helpful for various reasons. So hi, let's just say hi and see if it's going to work. So there you go. You can see that the model is basically responding instantly. I'm going to try to keep this open. I'm sorry for dizzying you. Let's ask it to build us some kind of game. I want you to build me, or I'm going to use voice so that I don't clank around at you. I want you to build me a 3D game where a user would control a character that is in first person, that is able to drop blocks and basically like build like Minecraft. Make it so that it is voxel style. Make sure that all of the controls are mapped properly. I need to be able to move around fluidly without any issues. I would prefer if you tried to test it out yourself using something like Agent Browser. Get through the start screen, make sure that you can control the actual character to move around. If you need to create a plan for yourself, do that and get to work. Build this out with whatever you need. You can install whatever you need as long as you can get it running in a browser and have it be working. So I'm just going to send that out, and you can see that, again, it instantly responds. It's building a 3D voxel game similar to Minecraft in the browser. It'll build it as a single HTML file using Three.js loaded from CDN for 3D rendering. And you could see that it's starting its work. It's doing its thinking. It's writing its code. And when we flip over here, it's running at 47.7 tokens a second right now. So this goes up and down depending on so many different factors that it's not really worth tracking. But on average, it's about 60 tokens a second. Yeah, now it's up to 69.9 tokens a second. Depends on whether or not the multi-token prediction stuff is working right. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So it's going to go and think, and it's going to write a lot of code. And you can see here that it has used like 3,800 tokens so far, but it'll just keep working. And in the same time, we're going to go and look at the Pro version here, and you can see that it's working within the Claude desktop app. So this hits my API for DeepSeek. Okay, it's still doing its thing. Let's go over to this post. And you can see in this post, which I will try to link it in the YouTube video, but this goes over how you could set up Claude Desktop, Claude Cowork, Claude Code with DeepSeek. And you can use the model straight up like in your tooling. It works right out the box. It's really good. And it's essentially free at this point. You could see that the cash hit is 2 cents. Without cash hit, it's 30 cents per million in. Compared to GPT, which is now something like $5 per million tokens in, you could see that this is like 10 times cheaper. The reason it's 10 times cheaper is they have like their own attention mechanisms. They have their own, like their whole stack is really optimized for their models. They've worked on the concept of efficiency a lot compared to other providers, and I think that reflects really well. Now, why is this such a big deal? There was an article that was posted yesterday. I'm going to try to find that. Let's see. It was posted by a YouTuber called Matthew. Here it is. No. There you go. So it was posted by this YouTuber named Matthew Bourbon. He does a lot of videos on like self-hosting and hardware and interviews with like big companies. He's a great guy. I think he does weekly news as well. And I think he is spot on in terms of the economic, like how this is going to affect the economy around AI. Because right now, like if you think about who Anthropic is selling to the most, it's usually these corporations and enterprises that have a few hundred employees. They give their employees Claude Max or like Claude Teams subscription, and they track how much people are using. The cost of that, even if it's going through, through subscriptions and everything, is going to be very high. That's one thing. Another is that despite them saying that they're not selling your data or using it to train models or whatever it is, despite them not saying that, you cannot guarantee that as a business. So as a business owner, if you have a large corporation and you're responsible for securing files of users and PII and all this other stuff that is very sensitive, you cannot guarantee that Anthropic is not using your data in some way that you don't like, or GPT or Gemini. I'm not singling Anthropic out, and I'm not saying that they are using data that they say they won't. So I just want to make that super clear. But this is a calculation that they have to do in their head. Is one, like the total cost of the product, because they are a business and they're optimizing their spend. They're not perfectly efficient, but to a certain degree that they need to think if they have like 8,000 employees and half of them are getting Claude Code, how many, what's the contract look like? How many years is it? What's the uptime and all this other stuff? How much can they control the data that's going in and out? How much can they guardrail the model? All this stuff is complex and requires a lot of thinking, and is stuff that you or me as developers or just like normies, employees, don't have to think about. So now imagine if somebody comes up and says to this business, instead of spending $300,000 on the Claude team subscription for your entire team of like whatever hundreds of people or thousands of people. Instead of doing that, what if you instead buy 16 RTX 6000s or B200s or whatever it is that your company can afford, even 3090s, a Mac, a few Macs? What if you can buy a few of those? You can get somebody to optimize them. You set them up in a room in your office, in your server rooms or whatever, or even a smaller model, right? But we'll talk about DeepSeek and why I think it's important in a minute. They come up to you and they say, you can have this, it's yours. It's open source, it's free to use, the license is free, you can control it pretty easily, it's small, it's really fast, it's got huge context windows, and the efficiency per token is really high. What this translates to is Now these US businesses that used to have to like lock themselves into a vendor, now they can actually explore purchasing an asset that seems to be appreciating in value and increasing investor spend, right? Whenever a company says that they have GPUs now and that they're going to be selling whatever service, they're going to be running inference for their company, their employees are using this many tokens, that helps them raise funds. That helps them get investors and all that stuff. And so the narrative behind it is like, we own our own AI. We have our own cluster of GPUs. Our business is tracking how many tokens we're using. The model that we're using has no guardrails. We can fine tune it on our own tasks. We can change it as we go along. The actual total investment is probably smaller than if you would go with a subscription at the scale of like a few thousand employees. So this is now a real thing that people have to start thinking about. And when we look at the actual model, going back here, let's forget about the pro version. Let's put that aside and let's think about the Flash. So the minimum amount of money you would need to run Flash at full context is something like $12,000 at full context. At full precision, like FP8, you would need $12,000, maybe less. You could probably get it for less if you use like a Mac Ultra or like 2 MacBooks or whatever and get decent performance. But you are a company and you have enough money and you are using enough inference to justify the spend. So $12,000, assuming you have 3 people that work with you and each one of them is paying for Claude Max, that's $600 a month, obviously with tax. That's about $800 a month. So $800 a month for about 18 months is $12,000. So now you have $12,000 in 18 months. You have your GPUs, which are typically going to live from 3 to 6 years. You have a narrative. You have something that you own and you can control and you can modify over time. And that's wonderful. The model is fast. We can go back over to the game and see how deep it is. You can see that it's still working. So it's used up about 3.3%, 38,000. So it's used about 15 or 16,000 tokens so far. Most of it is right. So you can see that it's written about 10K tokens. And we can see it is 63.5 tokens a second. All of the GPUs are on full load. And keep in mind, I power cap my GPUs. I have like a lot of stuff that I do to make sure that the power stays in a reasonable range. So I could probably get this to 2x in speed, but I'm on a house like circuit, and it's just not so easy to do. So taking a step back now, why this model and not the Qwen 3.6 27B? So a lot of people have been talking about 3.6 27B, how good it is, how accurate it is at design, and like it is a phenomenal model. For what it does, it is phenomenal. It's really good. I will try to get a, please give me an API key and an IP or a URL that I can use for inference to test the model out, or just have it create a voxel Minecraft game and then bring the HTML here and run it in my browser in Brave, but try to get the model to do it. Don't do it yourself. So I'm just gonna see if the 27B can be finished by the time we're done on a framework desktop. Probably not, because it's just very slow. So this is good speed though. This is probably as much time as it would have taken something like GPT. You can see that it's like the lines of code is rising pretty quickly. Going back, I know I'm rambling a bit, but we had a model release like 3.6 27B. This is a fantastic model for small chats where people have like a MacBook or something, where people have like a home server. This is an excellent model, but it's going to be faster. It's going to perform well only on NVIDIA and only on the latest NVIDIA. It, you know, okay, 39s or higher. It's going to perform well on those. The model has vision capabilities, but it is smaller. So smaller means slower and less world knowledge. Now, if you are a business, you need the model that you're using to be able to cover agentic tasks from browser use to like all these different types of tasks really well. You need the models to be able to do it faster than people. That's super important. If it's not faster than a person, there's no point in doing it. You could just hire a person at that point. Let's see, we can go over here and we can take a look at this model. I wanted to just like Qwen 3.627b review. There was this YouTuber who reviewed it. I think he made a pretty good video. And I'm going to mute this so we can take a look at the outputs. So like, okay, this is the browser OS, and you can see that it rendered the game inside of the browser. So this is all happening inside of a browser. It's a single HTML file. It has a working video game in it. I tested it with something called Godot. So Godot is like this game thing. I don't really know exactly how it works. The only thing I'm familiar with is that you can use it to build out games. I'm going to show some of the videos, and you can see it here. It is assisting me, and so there's a repo called PyMono that I like to look at and teach people with that does the agent loop. It is for the Pi agent harness, and you could see on the left I'm running the Pi ACP, and the model is running and doing all these tool calls, checking to see if the token stuff is working or not. So it is doing an excellent job. It is able to output. I'm able to ask it back and forth questions, and it'll just work for hours. I've tried it out we'll get into that in a second. I also have this private benchmark that I use to check how good models are on the types of tasks that I would give them. It is a maze, so it's like 35 directories within a project, and each directory has an encrypted file and some form of puzzle that you need to do something to decrypt the file, get the key so that you can open the next one, and it hit 33 out of 34, and it tied with Opus 4.7. So does that mean that the model is better? Not necessarily, but the fact that it can do that compared to other models that I've tried even through API, let's take a look here. So Minimax M2.1 hit 17 out of 35, so 50%. Sonnet 4.5 had 30 out of 35. GLM5 via API was 31. Qwen 3.235b was 32. So this measures like how deliberate a model can act, how consistent it could be, how much it could stay on task, because it's 35 tasks. It's about like 400,000 tokens. It needs to compact at least once. I wanted to show another video here. So this is where it's like actually solving the riddles and puzzles. So you could see it's doing the decryption and like trying to find the like patterns and all that. It's running at a relatively fast speed. 20K tokens written. So 7.1%. That's like 25,000 tokens in total. It's working. It's doing its thing. It ended with a good surprise. I also set it up to optimize its own speed. So how fast the tokens a second could go. And within 3 days, I got the tokens a second from something like 20 tokens a second to 30 to 90 plus at some point. It is very consistent. It has been able to manage all of the different workflows that I've thrown at it. Let's try to find another video. A second. We have this, which you can see it's working on like 3D maps and 3D games. I'm hoping that it'll be done soon so I can show you that. But I'm super happy with this. I think that it's going to be a very fundamental model for the next 2 years, because it's trained on such a wide amount of data that if you were a business, it just makes more sense to buy the GPUs, self-host the model, and then do the fine-tuning on it, do the reinforcement learning on it. Every tech company is going to have this narrative, this power behind it. You could see on the right here that it's controlling the browser. I'm going to move my view off the screen. It is controlling the browser. It is doing tool calls and like changing the links. I'm not controlling the screen. This is a browser plugin. I'll try to open it as well here, and we can have a conversation about it. Okay, I want you to deep research DeepSeek-V4-Flash and all of the details around how it was trained and why it's in FP4. So the text is a little small. Maybe I'll try to increase the size for you guys. That's okay. So it is doing its thing. This is actually live controlling my browser. You can see that my, what is it called? The cursor is right here. I'm just going to leave it there. This is it doing its own exploration. It's looking for links. It is researching the topic. I don't know how deep it's going to go. It made a mistake. It went back. And this is something that I really like about its behavior, is that I found it to be very consistent at like trying something and then failing and then fixing its problem and then double checking its work. And if it doesn't get it right, it tries again like some other way. It is very persistent. And I rarely see that within models. I see that they usually either ask you for help. So Claude has this persistence, and I appreciate that within the model. Let's go back. You could see here that it went and done 300 lines of code reduction over 7 files. This is great. The model is running right now. There's 2 requests, 62.5 tokens a second. And here it is still generating. It is 35,000 tokens in, 320 tokens up, because every turn it returns the thinking traces and all that. It is 15% or 14% through its context window. Let's go back to the browser. It's still navigating, and I think it's hitting some kind of like wrong documents. DK grouping, this might be related. Okay, so it's looking up FP4 training, and I have 2 of them running. I could probably run a third one. Let's try to run a third one while we wait. And let's go to projects, BLM Studio. Let's do Droid this time. I'm going to reload the screen. So what would I say about this? Because we had like a few models that have gotten close to this level locally. One of them, again, is Quen, which we talked about extensively. Let's go to DeepSeek-V4. Please describe this repo for me, the status of our migration, and what the next moves should be. While that's running, it's still reading, very consistent. I'm going to check this tab as well. It's still doing its thing. And let's see. It's still at 2, so it's going to start slowing down because I'm adding load onto it. I'm not sure if I limited this before I started because I was having some crashes, but I think it should be fine. If I have overloaded it, we'll see in a second. Yeah, it's been overloaded for sure. Yeah, it just crashed. So I overloaded it. I'm trying to play around with speculative decoding and all this stuff. So I think 2 is the limit that I should be sticking with. We can try to load the model again. DeepSeek-V4-Flash. Okay, it's getting up. And I will close this. It'll take a few minutes. But if I were to reduce the tokens a second by about 20%, I could probably get the 2 more users in, another 20%. I could get 8 in total. And yeah, I need to increase a little bit how much of the memory it's allowed to use. But whenever I increase it too much, it could end up running into out of memory issues. Now, the API, as you can see, just plugs in wherever you want it, wherever you want to use it. It is hosted on the DeepSeek servers. So if you are not a fan of your data being in the hands of like whatever, China or whatever it is, like some people don't like that. I don't see a reason for that to be a problem personally, but if you have that concern, you can try to rent a MI300X, so there is a GPU that you can rent from here, MI300X. You can get this off of Hot Aisle for $2 an hour. It's 256 gigabytes, I believe, or maybe 192. I'm not sure exactly, but you could get 1 to 2 of them for like $2 to $4 an hour and try it out. If you're paying $200 a month, you are probably spending around like $200 a month. 200 divided by 30, I don't know, something like 1.5, 200 divided by 30. Not divided by 30 is 6.6. So you're spending like $6 a day. That means, I don't know how much you're using the AI itself, but $6 a month is how much you were spending if you have one subscription, and this is not regarding taxes either. So I think just drop 20 bucks into the DeepSeek API, check the model out, see if it fits your needs, and then if it does, you could potentially go and purchase hardware to run something like this at home. You don't have to. You shouldn't feel like you need to. But it's good to have an alternative. Depending on how much tokens you're using a month, it's good to have an alternative. I'm using a super substantial amount of tokens. Yeah, it's loading again. I'm using a very substantial amount of tokens, so it's probably best for me to actually stick to buying hardware and just figuring out how to run more and more models on it. This is an excellent drop. I know I've rambled a lot over this video, but I hope you could see my excitement. I do think that this is going to be a fundamental model for the next 2 years to come for businesses and developers alike, and this brings down the cost of Frontier by a lot. You can see I'm having trouble here, but this is really always a problem when you're running your own models. You're always going to have some issues unless you stick with Llama CPP, and even then, it has issues. With LM Studio and stuff. But you can try this on LM Studio. The smallest one you can get on your machine is 90 gigabytes or so. So if you have 128 gigabytes or 196, you can run this at home at 2 or 3 bits. Just check Hugging Face and it should tell you how to do so. Thank you guys for listening. I hope this video was helpful. I think you should definitely try the model, and it isn't just hype. See you again in the next one. And if anybody from DeepSeek is listening, thank you.